through rapport, you can help somebody in tremendous ways to advance in their thinking or to overcome obstacles without even using any of the techniques. And then the techniques just become additional, sort of things you can call on if you need them, but they're not required. Communication is... This is Ray Birdwhistle's study done in 1970, that 93% of our communication is unconscious, which means, well, I don't know how they get to these precise numbers, but 55% of what I'm communicating to you is just what I'm doing with the body. In other words, 55% of the meaning you are giving my communication is determined by what I do with my physiology. 38% is the way in which I use my words, not the content. The tone, the tempo, the pitch, the timbre. Timbre is like the quality. Is it raspy or is it clear and articulate? And a measly 7% is the actual content. Okay, let's give or take a few percent. But what that means is a vast majority of what I communicate is unconscious. So if I want to appeal to your unconscious mind, and 55% of your communication is the physiology, then the way in which I want to connect to your unconscious mind and communicate to your unconscious mind, build rapport with your unconscious mind, in the classic NLP sense, is to match your physiology. When it comes to rapport, building that relationship that's based on trust, there are various skills that NLP teaches. But HNLP teaches its own way of allowing rapport to develop naturally. And it is nothing other than being in peripheral vision and having the intention to connect as a human being with another human being, to be of unconditional support for that person, to help them, and you're in this state. That will result in certain phenomena that classic NLPers do in order to get into rapport. And those phenomena are known as matching and mirroring of physiology and voice. So the classic NLP way of getting into rapport with another is to do with your physiology what they're doing with theirs. 55% of communication is unconscious physiological aspects, okay? So if you want to develop rapport with somebody or get into rapport with them in the classic NLP way, then the idea is you just start to sit exactly like them. You assume the same physiology. They move, within 20 seconds you move in a similar way. Not so that you're copying them directly, but they start to understand that, you know, this person, there's something about them, isn't there? So if I was going to match Niall's physiology, I would put my right leg over. Niall has his right leg over, okay? And left arm is up here, and right arm is out here. That's a match to Niall's physiology. I would do this, and if Niall moved, I would move in a similar way within 20 seconds so that it's subtle and goes under the conscious radar. Until such time that, hey, our communication starts to flow, there's a warming, there's something going on here. And there's a way of testing, has rapport officially developed? And the way in which you do that is you lead. Now I would do something like, and see if Niall follows my lead. Clearly we don't have enough rapport yet. If I do that and Niall follows, I've got the lead. Which means I've got the lead at an unconscious level. Which means I can now take my turn at saying what needs to be said. As long as there's rapport, the other person will be in agreement with me, will follow my lead. These types of things will also help you to get into rapport. What do? I'm in peripheral vision with the intention to connect deeply with my client. And then I find after a while, hey, we are matching each other's physiology. I didn't have to try and do it. This is the failure in the classic NLP way of getting into rapport. Because if I'm trying to match your physiology, where's my attention? It's on me. Am I properly matching their physiology? Have I got the right position? It's me. I'm not being client-centered in that moment. And I think being client-centered is much more important. So the HNLP way is completely client-centered. And by default, you'll start to match. Matching, as I've described to you, is sitting in a similar way to them. Mirroring would become their mirror image, okay? So if I wanted to match Carl, he's got his right leg over his left. I put my right leg over my left. I'm matching him. If I want to mirror him, I become a mirror image. Okay, can you see that that's now a mirror image as opposed to the matching before? Some people in NLP believe mirroring their physiology is even more powerful in terms of developing deep rapport so that you can get into rapport. And they teach this in sales workshops so that you can very quickly get into rapport with somebody, because when you've got rapport, they'll follow you. And I stress, what's more important is that you're in peripheral vision with the intention to connect with them in a useful way. And then you will find, hey, look, wow, like yin and yang, give and take. We're ebb and flow here. One moves, the other is sort of moving in relation to that. Crossover mirroring is something that women may find useful. For example, you're doing hypnotherapy with a good old stereotypical rugby playing South Africa who wears his shorts. Yeah, and he's sitting like a man, all right? We all know these types. And you're a lady in a miniskirt. What are you going to do? Huh? So crossover means doing something that resembles what they're doing with one part of their body with another part of yours. So what would the lady do? She might like to sit like this for a while with her arms open. It works just as well. Or the guy's got his legs crossed. You as a lady, you're not comfortable with that, just cross your arms. He changes legs, change arms. It's more subtle, you see, it's clever. Now there's a particular reason why I want to teach you crossover mirroring, because there's a cunning way of using it ethically. I had a client, little young boy, with ADHD. I didn't label him, he came with that label. And the child is bouncing off the walls, and they're crazy, and they can't sit still, and everything's like looking around and touching things and like this. And you know that you can't begin to work with a child like that because they're just a little bit too hectic. I know I can't start to be really useful until I've got into his model of the world. So I start to crossover mirror his manner through tapping my hand. And I'm just kind of pacing what he's doing. I'm sort of gauging what kind of tempo his erratic behaviors are at, and I'm just kind of mirroring them here through this. While I'm asking him questions about his hobbies and interests and so on, which of course builds rapport as well, and he's starting to feel comfortable in my presence. And when I start to notice that he's feeling comfortable in my presence, then begin to slow down the pace. And you will notice that the child will start to match your tempo. Until they're seated and ready to begin the session. That's matching physiology. Now when it comes to voice qualities, you want to pay attention, as I said this morning, to the types of words that they use that describe their model of the world. Are they using predominantly visual or auditory or kinesthetic terms? Are they using high chunk sizes or low chunk sizes? And I'll explain to you later what those are. Because you want to relate to their types of terms and use the same types of terms in your reciprocating communication. That then matches their voice, which is 38% of the way in which they're communicating. If you have a deep, thunderous voice and they have a high-pitched voice, are you going to try and turn your deep voice into a high-pitched voice so that it sounds strange and forced? No, because the other person is going to wonder what you're up to. That's rapport breaking. But within your comfortable range, you will do with your voice what the other person's doing with theirs. For example, if you're ever going to apply your coaching over the phone, which is something we specialize in, and we have a tele-seminar teaching you how to do phone coaching. And I believe it's a free download on our site. The audio programs on the Jevon Dangley site, how to convert your coaching skills over the phone. And there I highlight the importance of being able to discern what is your client's preferred representational system over the phone, where you can't see them. Because there you don't have physical matching and mirroring, but you do have the voice to pace. Okay, so you can get into rapport through pacing the person's voice. And if they're visual, they'll be speaking fast and they'll be using visual terms. You don't want to talk to them about how things sound or how things feel. You want to talk to them about how things look, using as many of the visual predicates as you possibly can, which is why getting familiar with lists like this is a reasonably good idea. Okay? If they pick up the phone and they go, "Hello, how are you today?" Very articulate, very musical. Could it be it's an auditory person? Right? You need to hear some more of what they have to say, but maybe they use words like how things sound. Okay? Listen, tune into. They use auditory terms, in which case you'd want to use those kinds of predicates too, because it builds rapport. Do they talk about how things feel? The kinesthetic people are more introspective. They get in touch with things. They feel what you mean. And they speak slower, generally speaking. All generalizations are lies, but generally. Okay? In which case you want to slow down your tempo and use the kinesthetic predicates that they prefer to hear so that they feel heard. Okay. So that's how you can get into rapport with somebody using matching and mirroring, their physiology and tone of voice, including predicates. All right. If you ever go to a romantic restaurant and there's a couple and there's amazing rapport between them and they're totally in love and it's Valentine's Day, but they move the flowers out of the way so that there's nothing between them. They just want to be present with each other. And you observe them, there's a constant ebb and flow of movements. The one moves, the other responds, the other one moves, the other one, and it's naturally occurring, you see. This is what people in rapport do. So it's a byproduct of rapport. But NLP modelers have noticed people in rapport behaving that way. Oh, so we can behave in that way in order to get into rapport. Through rapport, you can help somebody in tremendous ways to advance in their thinking or to overcome obstacles without even using any of the techniques.